So, you don't want to start with the Iceman Cometh, do you?
I'll talk about anything you want to talk about.
All right. Well, first off, let's talk about the hat and the hair, because you're different. So what is the reason for this?
Yeah, I had my, I'm getting applause for my haircut.
Yeah.
Yes, I've really gotten into competitive swimming. It's great to be back at the Y. My head was shaved for a role in this new upcoming anthology series for FX called American Crime Story, which starts in February. And the first season is about the O.J. Simpson trial, and I'm playing the legendary defense attorney F. Bailey. Who was a part of the Dream Team.
What does the F stand for? Did you find out?
Francis.
Francis?
Yeah, he was a colorful character.
Catholic?
Was he Catholic?
Well, I'm only saying that because I know that you are. And I was wondering, just a segue, that's all.
So they only, they would only cast a Catholic actor in the role?
No, because I'm curious about whether you went to Catholic school or what kind of
we're
Catholic...
making a segue now.
Segue, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to free associate tonight because I'm with you.
Okay. Well, yes, I went to Catholic school. Yeah, Our Lady of Guantanamo Bay. Yeah.
And how was it?
Run by an elite SWAT team of women known as Dominican nuns. I was just talking about this the other night about how frightening it was. I guess I was discussing the film Spotlight with some friends. Right. I had just seen it, and we were talking about how it's all based. The Catholic religion, is all based on fear. And they used to hand out this pamphlet, called the Baltimore Catechism, which would, and you would ask all these sort of spiritual questions about God, and and the first few questions were, who is God? Why did God make you? And you would have to memorize them and then repeat it back under interrogation.
Right.
So it was sort of like the Manchurian Candidate for 7-year-olds. And and Sister Robert De Niro would walk up and down the aisle. And then she would suddenly, I swear this is all true, and then she would turn around like a Bond villain, slam her hand on the desk and say, who is God? And I would say, I don't know, I'm 7, I just got here.
Fear, it's about fear. It was. It's basically like ISIS. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's all based on fear.
ISIS, although now I keep hearing, they keep using the term ISIL, and all, because I'm from the theater, I think, wasn't that one of Tevye's daughters? ISIL, the forgotten 6th daughter of Tevye. ISIL, she was a handful.
So when you were 7 in these...
She was the one. He couldn't marry her off for nothing. No one wanted ISIL.
So when you were a kid in the Catholic school, were you were you a little cut up, really,
Yes.
You were?
Yes, I was definitely a class clown. I would make comments in the back, and I would...
Did you get hit?
Oh, are you kidding? That was their favorite pastime. This was before they cracked down on corporal punishment. Oh, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Not since the Gestapo. No, nuns would throw you. I was talking about, it's so funny. You should have been at this dinner. I was talking about, because I had a nun who she used to throw people against the wall and and it was ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
It was crazy. And obviously, some of these people were obviously going through something. I don't know, menopause or whatever it was. But they were taking it out on 12-year-olds like you wouldn't believe. It's really crazy.
Well, it's the celibacy. It makes them crazy.
Well, sure. Although, really, I remember my brother telling me he walked in on the pastor of the church making out with, Sister Joey Heatherton,
You sure it wasn't Father Joey Heatherton?
No, it was. It was a sister. I mean, it's, really, if this was any other organization, they would have been closed down by now.
Of course. Well, in the movie Spotlight, they say that 50% of the priests are not celibate.
Yeah.
50% are not. So what is the bullshit about celibacy? It's not.
Well, it's a ridiculous requirement. These are human beings.
Really?
I don't know. Believe me, I'm from the Bill Maher school, so don't get me started.
What?
This is all, whatever gets you through the night, but, don't put me through that.
Are you an atheist? You consider yourself,
Yes,
you consider yourself
definitely.
an atheist? You do?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Look, I think it's wonderful if people have faith and they want to believe that someone's up there and looking after them, and then they're all going to go to heaven and meet all their relatives and all the great people who ever lived, and that's swell. It's a nice story. If that makes you happy, then I'm happy for you. I don't actually think that's going to happen.
They really know, but people actually really do believe, as we were saying before, that the dinosaurs roamed the earth the same time as people.
Yeah, right. Or and kids believe in Santa Claus. But what are you going to do?
Right.
I mean, at a certain point, you realize that's a lot of horse shit. There isn't a man in the North Pole making toys.
Well,
who delivers them all in one night. It's the same thing, really.
My grandson just said, why doesn't he come through the door? He's 4 years old. Why can't, it's like...
Why does he come down the chimney?
Why doesn't he just come through the door?
And the people who don't have chimneys don't get toys, apparently.
But they do anyway. How do you explain that?
How do you explain that? There are so many unanswered questions. And tonight we're going to answer them all for you.
And I also found out recently, maybe you told me this before, but I forget things.
I'm so glad you're back on The View, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
It didn't seem...
Thank you.
Because it didn't seem like...
That was not tumultuous enough.
It didn't seem like The View without you. And when you go on the show, it's like a family gathering. You're unsure whether you should attend or not. And then, but when you see Joy, you think, oh, there's my favorite aunt, and she's liberal and funny, and that'll make me feel better about the experience.
Well, you always have a great time over there.
Yeah.
We love to have you there. So come anytime.
Oh, well, thanks.
All right. In fact, what are you doing there tomorrow? We have a hole. All right, no. All right. So, and then I found out that you do stand-up. You did stand-up comedy. I didn't realize that. You're so talented. You even tried that, which is one of the harder things to do.
I would say, yes. I mean, I did it. Yes. When I was a struggling actor in New York City, and then at a certain point, what happened was I was delivering singing telegrams in New York.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, give us an example. Can you remember?
You had to put on a tuxedo, and you would show up in an office and sing, and usually it was to, it was a public domain tune, or the William Tell Overture. It's your day, your day is here, so we're sending you some musical cheer. So. And I had a little top hat, and I would go out, and, I was it was just one of those jobs to make ends meet while I was struggling as an actor. And this one time, I went to, it was at an Italian wedding in a little restaurant in the village, and there was an accordion player on stage. Mm-hmm. And so I walked in, and it was a singing telegram wishing the bride and groom congratulations from someone who couldn't be there, and so I got up, and the accordion player was, sort of, I don't know, making fun of me. He was sort of giving me a hard time.
Really?
You know things are bad when you're starting to get heckled by an accordion player.
That really is the nadir.
Is that right?
Of an experience. The nadir.
The nadir. So I gave him some sass back, and the people were laughing, and then I did my tune, and then I started to leave, and then they said, no, stay, keep talking, they said.
Oh.
So the accordion player was really miffed. And I talked, I talked about my life as a struggling actor, and they laughed, and at the very end, people threw money at me.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Did you take the money?
Sure, I took the money. And I'd highly recommend that tonight. so I thought, well, maybe there's something to this.
Yeah.
And then I started to do, just nights in a piano bar where you would get up and try things out. And then what happened was I did a little musical review, and I worked with an actor by the name of Patrick Stack in this show, and we had stuff together, and people thought we were funny together, and suggested that we put an act together, and eventually we did. We started we used to write for other people, and then eventually we put our own act together, and we had a little bit of success. This was in the late 70s, and then in 1980 we went to LA. We signed with William Morris and had a Beverly Hills manager, and we.
So one day you still have a career after you signed with William Morris.
Yes. So we went to LA and we did the Comedy Store, and we appeared on the Merv Griffin show, and we did all of that stuff and opened for rock acts, and it was really a wonderful experience, a great learning experience for me, because as an actor, of course, you're always dependent on being cast, but it became, we had this product. We became our own writers, directors, and stars, and we had this product that we could take anywhere and perform anywhere, and it was a very freeing experience, and I didn't have it, look, I think stand-up is one of the great arts. I mean, and I have true admiration for anyone who does it. I mean, the real stand, like yourself or Seinfeld or any of these guys, Louis C.K. I mean, there's real artistry involved. So I didn't have that in my heart to be there every night, every single night working on it like that. The way I feel about the theater.
Yeah.
So I didn't really want to do that for the rest of my life. But we were both actors and hoped that it might lead to something or being cast.
But it's good that you even did it, because it gives you a sense of independence about your
certainly
career.
It is,
you can always do it.
My entire life. It made me a writer. It made me, that's how I started writing. And anytime I go on talk shows or stuff, all those 20 years of doing Letterman, and so much of that is me, you have to write, because he had an audience and he wanted you to come out and be funny.
Well, you always come prepared.
Well, I try.
There are a few people in the industry that I admire for that. Like Joan Rivers, she never showed up on a talk show without an arsenal of material, and you are like that.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing. You have to.
Yeah, right?
Otherwise, it gets mushy.
Yeah.
Now, so you became a big star, and you are a huge talent and a huge star. And I'm not just kissing your butt now. It's true.
Well,
and I wonder how you handle that.
Well, I think it takes a long time to figure all of that out, to figure out fame anyway, and that it doesn't really. It's startling when it happens. It's a little overwhelming. No one can really prepare you for it. It just sort of starts to happen slowly but surely. And you've been through it too, where you realize people know who you are.
Don't you? I always find it interesting that anyone recognizes me. I feel that I look like everybody else.
Well, what's happened is I now sort of, I like it because it feels everywhere you go, you feel like you're at home with people.
Right.
That they know you and that they can, and at least with people with me, they feel I'm approachable. Although you never know what people, like the other night, Devlin and I were at a benefit, and a woman came up to me and she said, I don't care what everybody says about you. I think you're very nice.
God.
And I thanked her. But,
Did that hurt your feelings?
No, because nothing hurts my feelings anymore. No, I just, people get nervous. People don't quite know what they're saying, or or some people... sometimes it does, people are sort of aggressive. Most of the time people are very nice and they just want to tell you they enjoy your work, and that's a lovely thing to hear.
That's right.
Not many people get that. Plumbers don't get that. They don't get stopped on the street and say, hey, that was what a...
That was some pipe you fit.
Right. So this is a lovely, byproduct of being, an actor that people know, and so I enjoy that. It's just that sometimes people get all worked up, or there is kind of also the angry fan. How do you kind of owe me because I paid attention to you, so you better talk to me. It's that guy,
Yeah.
And by the time they get to you, they're all, and there's that, and that can be a little scary.
Yeah.
But 90% of the people are
People
very,
are very nice.
And I think there's no handbook for that. You just sort of figure it out as you go along and get used to it, and and then there is always the fact that you can always get a dinner reservation. That's always
It's always a lovely
isn't
thing.
it?
But I mean, it seems to me that you were made to be in this business. That you're one of those people that you say he couldn't do anything else. Am I right? Is there any other profession you ever wanted to?
Because I'm a damaged soul. That's why. There is no other business for damaged souls.
Do you think all people in the business are a little damaged?
I think so. I think that unless you're like Marty Short, he had a very happy childhood, and although there was sadness certainly in his life, but he's somebody who's he hasn't gone through that sort of doubt, and I think.
Well, not everybody's damaged. I mean, some people. I didn't have a terrible childhood.
I think there's a reason why we go into this. I think there's the reason. It's that story that Dustin Hoffman told on Inside the Actor Studio about. Olivier saying to him, "Do you know why we do this, dear boy?" And he said, "Why?" And he said, "Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me." This is Laurence Olivier. So there is that, why we didn't, we didn't get enough love as a child, or we.
But Olivier sounds quite needy.
Needy?
Very needy.
Well, yeah, he probably was.
Yeah.
But, and then it's probably what drove him to do the kinds of things he did on stage.
Yeah, probably.
Those, and that why he was able to direct, Henry Shakespeare on film and do, an evening of Oedipus Rex and Mr. Puff and the Critic. I mean, he was taking on these huge challenges.
You're exactly like that. You go from the producers to the Iceman Cometh, that's the range. I mean, you'll do all of that too. You're very unique that way, I think.
Well, thank you.
You don't see Marty Short happy as he is doing it.
Well, but Marty, I think Marty has that. And anyone who saw him in the Damages, for example, he did a season of Damages, and he was spectacular.
Yes, and SVU too.
Doing something
He was on
serious.
SVU. He's very good. Yeah.
No, he can be a wonderful serious actor. I just don't think it interests him that much. And he said, we had a dinner in L.A. and I was saying to him, I always quote this thing he said. He was interviewed, and someone said to him, they asked him about why didn't he do more serious stuff. And he said, well, when people go to the zoo and they go to the monkey house, they want to see the monkeys act like monkeys. They don't want to see the monkeys be introspective. And I thought that was, hilarious. And then, I started to think about it, and I said, to myself, I'm actually one of the introspective monkeys.
Yeah.
I have, Iceman came about because I had reached a point where I thought, I just finished doing a musical called The Addams Family, which was not an easy experience, and I felt like I could go on doing this kind of entertainment for the rest of my life, and I certainly I've tried to do some different things along the way, and Butley and Waiting for Godot, and many other, the Terrence McNally plays or Robbie Bates plays, but I was reaching a point where I thought I really got to shake things up, and I want to change. There's sort of a perception that I was, just becoming an entertainer. And I wanted to, really get back to acting, and so that's how why I approached Bob Falls and said, could we do this? Could I play Hickey? And I wanted to do it with him and Brian Dennehy, who have this long history together of theater in Chicago at the Goodman Theater, and then some of it had obviously reached New York with The Death of a Salesman and Long Day's Journey into Night. But and so when we wound up doing it first in Chicago in 2012, which was this tremendous experience, and then again it was remounted at Brooklyn Academy of Music this last year. And it was the high point of my theatrical life, was to get to do that play, and then to get to do it again and have another shot at it with that tremendous company of actors. And it was No, it was just the thrill of a
So,
lifetime.
I want to go back to the childhood thing because you're talking about how we're damaged and all like sad little cases that we are. And I'm wondering.
Did you have a happy childhood?
It wasn't unhappy or happy. It was what it was. Nobody hit me. Nobody was mean to me. Nobody said shut up to me. I was a kid who was sort of programmed to perform. And so and I kept doing it. I just kept doing it. So I didn't know how to do anything else. I tried a million other professions. But
I performed too for my family. I literally at 5, I had like a bad club act. I'd get up and I would do impressions. I would do impressions. It was the worst.
But was your childhood? Was anybody mean to you as a child?
Well,
I mean,
my father was an alcoholic, and my mother was manic depressive. She was bipolar, and
they're all bipolar.
I know.
All these mothers were all bipolar.
Well, it's I know it seems that way, but at the time, what happened was, my father died when I was 11, and he drank himself to death, and my mother, who had been raising 3 children on her own, first had lost her mother, my grandmother, who we were both very close to, and my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, had really helped to raise me, and she died, and then we had moved away from my father because my mother couldn't deal with it anymore. She had gotten him into AA many times, and it hadn't worked, and it was just a bad situation. So we moved away, and within 6 months he was dead, and from drink, and she had a breakdown after these 2 deaths, and then at first it wasn't really diagnosed. It was diagnosed as she had I remember doctors saying she had an overactive thyroid. I remember they weren't sure what was going on, but she was going through these tremendous mood swings and paranoia, and this was all through while I was going to high school. And, she was suicidal, and then she would be put into a mental institution for short periods and then come out. And then she would move into after having been in a depressive stage, would move into a manic stage. So, and my 2 older brothers by that point had married and moved out. And so it was just me at home, dealing with this. So, I mean, they certainly, my brothers were there to help, but it was, it was really difficult and emotional, and to see your mother go through all of that. And then eventually, finally, after about 5 years, after, a rather dramatic, she showed up at a local, I woke up, she was gone one morning, and she had showed up at a local church, and she had something about the priest. She had years before, this is more information than you needed, but
it's fascinating.
Years before, when she was young, when she was married to my father and he was away at war, she almost had an affair with a priest, and was very Fanny Hurst. And then, and so she had this fantasy about this priest who was on the altar, and she strode into the church. It was during some high mass in a raincoat, smoking a cigarette, screaming at the priest on the altar, and she was taken away. And
where were you at that time?
This was a 6 a.m. mass or something. I was at home in bed. So, and then I was told later that she had done this, but fortunately, and she made the papers. But fortunately, it led to her being diagnosed as what they then called manic depressive.
Right.
And they were able to get her on lithium, and which was tremendously helpful and changed her life. But it took several years to get to that point. So, I mean, really, I saw her go through the worst kinds of from suicidal to totally paranoid, and this was like during Watergate. I remember she'd always tell me
70s.
She was Nixon. She was talking about Nixon, and she would say he's not the president, and I would say, I said, unfortunately he is the president.
But so is it safe to say that with that kind of childhood, you used humor as a defense?
Well, without question.
How could you survive it?
Well, you had to. You had to have a sense of humor, and all of my brothers have that. And yes, and I was also I was a tiny, fat kid. So yes, humor was definitely a defense mechanism.
Survival.
And show business or the theater was certainly my escape.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lucky that you had it, and
Yeah.
lucky and that you had talent.
Well, yeah. Can you imagine if I was untalented?
Well, there are lots of people.
Well, we wouldn't be here tonight, would we?
But there are many people,
No.
Nathan.
I'd be working the concession stand. With a heavy beard, and it'd be very sad. Not that people working the concession stand are damaged souls.
So, a reporter for Us Weekly once asked if you were gay.
Uh-huh.
And you said, quote, "I'm 40, single, and work a lot in the musical theater. You do the math."
Yeah. I said this, and actually after that I said, "What do you need, flashcards?" And they still said I hadn't come out of the closet. What more do you want?
Yeah.
People aren't interested in my sex life anyway. It was only because of the birdcage. Certainly I have been out in my personal life, and but it was that thing of suddenly it became the notion of coming out publicly,
Yeah.
which then at that time was a big thing. Now it's sort of almost frowned upon. It's more discreet just to mention your husband at an award show, as opposed to saying I'm out and I'm proud. But at that time, it was like you were, so when it came up, I thought it was a rather clever and amusing way of telling them, as opposed to making some declaration.
But do you think that people should come out now? What about actors? Actors have a problem because a male actor, in particular,
Yeah.
who's out and gay, I think has trouble getting jobs as a leading man, let's say.
Yeah, if you're in that category, yes.
Yeah.
Sure. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Matt Bomer, who I know, and he's married to my publicist, and he's a handsome leading man, but now he's openly gay, and I'm sure. Look, there's homophobia is alive and well. So yes, it's naive to think. I think it's great to do it. I think people should be out and be who they are, but it would be naive to say that it won't have some effect.
It has to impinge
on your
upon,
career.
So we're really not that much further along than Rock Hudson was, in a way.
Well, maybe I think we're a little further along, but not enough. But yes, I think. Yes, I think people should come out. I think as Harvey Milk said, it's the most political thing you can do is to come out.
But it's not the same for female actress, for the actress, if you think about it.
No, I know, because that's
It's just part
guys
of the male fantasy.
they think that's hot.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, it's the guys who that gives people pause. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't mind the notion of yeah, that's true. That is true, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Because
although I don't see, it would be, you're not seeing who's openly gay. Sarah Paulson I just worked with. She's openly gay.
I thought you were going to say Sarah Palin. I'd love to.
Wouldn't that be a great turn
that
of
would be
events?
great.
Sarah Palin.
You never know. You never
that'd
know.
be great.
It's always the ones who are the most homophobic. You find out that.
Well, of course,
that
yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, always work. It's always some Republican senator voting against all the stuff,
Always.
and then they are found in the bathrooms and.
Tap, tap, tap.
Hiring hustlers, and it's crazy. We're so fucked up by sex and religion.
I know.
It's
the two together are
Yeah.
lethal.
Jesus.
So you came out to your mother
Yeah.
at age 21, and when you told your mother you were gay, what did she say?
By the way, since we're talking about all this, and my partner Devlin Elliott, who co-wrote the book, a wonderful writer and wonderful man, we got married yesterday.
Yesterday? Wait a second. Hold on. So wait a second. That means that you're spending your honeymoon at the 92nd Street Y.
That's how much I love the 92nd
Oh, my God.
Street Y. No, well, yesterday. We did it yesterday afternoon.
Congratulations.
Yesterday, yeah. Last night was our honeymoon.
How long were you two together?
18 years.
Yes. You figure you might as well, right?
Well, yeah.
That's
you know.
what happened to me.
Well-
After 29 years, it's like I need somebody to step on the air hose at some point. And you know, I married a Jew because the Catholics won't do it. A Jew will do it.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what a lovely thought. Yeah.
I'm just an incurable romantic.
You just wanted to make sure there was someone to pull the plug?
Well, you want somebody at the last minute to say, okay, that's it for her. You know, she's in a
Well, you
vegetative
can't
state.
sign a do not
whatever.
resuscitate.
I know, but sometimes you forget it, you leave it home. That could happen. They want you to wear the bracelet that says
Yeah.
do not. But, you know, someone could say you're just accessorizing. They don't even know why you have it on your wrist.
Yeah.
I don't trust any of that. Only a Jewish husband. That's my...
Yeah. Well, we didn't get married for that reason, but...
Well, what reason did you get married
Well,
for?
an old-fashioned reason because we love each other.
Ah.
Yeah.
Are you implying that I don't love my husband?
I don't. I'm not implying that. I know that you love Steve.
I do.
And he loves you.
I do, but
Yeah.
you know. Anyway, so tell us what
Yeah.
What did your mother say when you told her you were gay?
Well, you know, this story, you know, it's come up in the past, and I sort of give my mother a bad rap. So, but you've heard her backstory. You know, this
Yeah,
poor little Irish Catholic lady.
Yes, of course. It's not that bad a
So-
story. You want me to tell him what she said?
No, I'll tell her.
Okay, go
but,
ahead.
But I just wanted so you know what she had been through,
Yeah.
and a rather difficult time. And I was 21, and I was about to move out, and I was going to move to New York. I was living with her in New Jersey at the time, and I met someone, and you know, was dating, but I had told her, because I didn't want to upset her, I had told her I was seeing a girl, and but you know, we had been through a lot together, obviously, from what you've heard, and I hadn't ever lied to her before, and I thought, this is so stupid. And so the night before I left,
Yeah.
I sat her down and I said, I know I told you I was seeing a girl, but I have to tell you, I want to be honest with you, but I've been seeing a guy. And you know her face just drained of blood, and she said, "You mean you're a homosexual?" And I said, I guess so. And she said, rather painfully, she said, I would rather you were dead. And I said, I knew you'd understand. And once I got her head out of the oven, she was fine. But cut to, so many years later, I'm doing a show, and I'm getting the sort of theater actors' rite of passage. They're giving me a portrait at Sardi's restaurant. And I'm there with a young guy I was dating at the time who was a modern dancer. Those were the days.
Yes.
He was a very attractive modern dancer, and this was the first time my mother had met him, and I introduced them, and she chatted with him for a second, and he went off to get her a drink, and she turned to me and in a tone that I had never heard from her before said, "He's good."
Really?
So everyone is capable of change.
That is the conclusion. All right. Now, you have worked with so many people.
Yes.
And if I throw out some names,
Sure.
can you give us some
Sure.
snapshots?
Yeah.
Matthew Broderick.
Matthew Broderick, really, truly one of the funniest people I know. So sweet and dear, and also twisted and subversive, and quietly outrageous, and he's. This is something that happens and we joke about it. He's a wonderful actor, of course, but he has this side of him that people don't often see, which is he's one of the most brilliant mimics that I know. He can do impressions of people, and he picks them up very quickly and starts to do them and creates little routines around them. And he could do, he used to do this impression of young Mike Nichols and then old Mike Nichols. And I was like, it was uncanny, and he could do, and of course he does a great Brando because he did The Freshman with him, and so he had this hilarious Brando impression. But not just that, but sometimes he would invent characters and do these really nuanced, brilliant things that you would not expect from him. And then what happens is, I used to refer to him, he was like the Warner Brothers frog, because he'd be doing, hello, my honey, hello, my baby, and then you would ask him to do it for someone, and he would just go, ribbit. He would stop, he couldn't do it. He wouldn't do it for other people,
Shy.
Oh, he's shy. He gets shy that way.
He's a little shy.
And then, but if you're alone with him, he's an incredible.
He's wild.
I mean, he's one of the smartest people I know.
George C. Scott. I'm curious about him because I read some nasty stuff about him once. But you were in a Noel Coward play.
I did 2 plays with him. I made my Broadway debut with him in a Noel Coward play called Present Laughter that he directed and starred in. And then 9 years later, we worked together in an old Paul Osborne play called On Borrowed Time. Uh-huh. And George was one of the great actors of the 20th century, great American actors. Could do Shakespeare, could do anything. Could do comedy, and obviously was famous for his dramatic work. He was a troubled soul. He, a terrible alcoholic. He literally said this in one of the shows we did. I think it was the first one where he had an interview with the Times where he just said, "I'm a functioning alcoholic," whatever that means. And the first time around, it wasn't such a problem, the drinking. We had a great success with this production at Circle in the Square. And he was an intimidating figure. But I worshiped him as an actor. I was so thrilled to be working with him. And he was very sweet to me. He was very paternal. He used to call me Peaches. He would say, yeah, Peaches. He would say, Peaches, come over here and sit, and he was...
It's another word for fruit, isn't it?
What? Well... No. Well, no.
Well,
no. He was Peaches is like an old, it's like a term of endearment that you would hear on an old radio show. Oh, Peaches.
Oh, okay.
So no, he wasn't. But believe me, in that regard, on the first day of rehearsal, after we finished the read-through, he did say out loud. This was in 1982. He did say out loud, "You know what I like about this cast? No fags."
I rest my case.
And I'm sitting next to Dana Ivey, who turned to me and said, I'm sure he meant that in a nice way.
Yeah.
But it does, you know what, people talk that way. And yet, I loved him. I just loved him. He was such to be on stage with George C. Scott was a privilege. It was electricity. He was one of the greats.
Yeah.
And so that was a great way to make my Broadway debut. And then 9 years later, we worked together on this other show. And I saw you checking your watch.
No, it's an Apple Watch. I was just buzzed.
Oh, it's an Apple Watch?
Yeah.
Oh, you're getting messages?
I'm getting a
on-
message, yeah.
Okay. Oh, this is great.
Tell
so you're like
Nathan-
watching The Voice while I'm talking?
I could be.
I'm sitting here pouring my heart out.
I'm thinking, okay.
And you're voting on some song contest.
I want to see what lie Ben Carson has come up with. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What about
Okay,
What
that's-
about Robin Williams?
Well, Robin was.
Which, by the way, that scene, you were brilliant in the Birdcage, by the way, really funny. He was. I love that movie. It's one of my faves.
Thanks.
But Robin, that little thing that he did with the, Twyla,
Yes.
the dance thing that he does, it was like just a little genius moment for him.
Yes, it was very much a moment that Mike wanted, because he was, originally the film was supposed to be Steve Martin and Robin playing the part I played. And then Steve couldn't do the movie, and then Robin decided he had just done Mrs. Doubtfire and didn't want to get in drag again. And so he decided he wanted to play the other part, and somehow I wound up playing the opposite him, which was my great good fortune. But Mike wanted him to have, because he was the more reserved character, he wanted to give Robin a moment of improvisation. And so when we were rehearsing this thing, it came up, and so he allowed him. It was the only time. I mean, he allowed us. Mike was generous. I mean, he was very protective of Elaine May's script, but because Robin and I were like two children, and he would allow us to have like one take where he would allow us to say whatever happened to be on our minds. And a little bits of that wound up in the film, but that was one where he just allowed Robin to.
That was just an improv, right?
Yes, yeah, he improvised the whole thing, and yeah.
It's impressive.
Beautiful thing. He was, obviously a genius and a wonderful actor, but just, his kindness and generosity, and to me in that in particular, and just in general, he was just, he was extraordinary. And it's, I always just think about Billy Crystal saying it's hard to talk about him in the past tense, and it really is.
It is.
I can't believe.
It's still shocking, isn't
it's
it,
still
that
shocking
he's dead?
that he's
Joan
not here.
Rivers, I still
I
can't
know.
wrap my head around
Yeah.
Joan at
Yeah.
all. It's like it didn't happen. But and the list of people that you worked with is just impressive. It's like the top. Neil Simon, Mel Brooks. What about Mel? I mean, also really a brilliant comic.
I just talked to him the other day.
Yeah.
When I was in LA making American Crime Story, we had several dinners. And then when I went to see Hamilton, and Lin-Manuel Miranda asked me to sign the wall next to his dressing room, and he said there was some space, and he said, "Look, sign underneath your friend," and Mel had signed the best show ever. Except for the producers.
Of course. He can't control himself.
Mel is, again, one of these, these giants, and I was lucky enough to get to work with him, and it was, he's the most entertaining person in the world. Devlin and I, we had dinner with him in L.A., and and he's hilarious, and adorable, and then he wanted us, Carl Reiner, who's like 92, who he goes to see every night. He visits him to make sure he's okay. And
Mel is almost 92 himself.
Mel is 89, but he's a...
He goes to see if Carl is okay. That's funny.
It's so sweet, He just, he looks in on him. I mean,
Don't
Carl
they watch movies together
They
and have
watch
dinner
movies,
together?
they have dinners, and but Carl wanted us to see a film called Random Harvest. That Greer Garson and Ronald Colman.
Yeah.
So I had never seen this film, and Devlin had never seen it. But Carl, it became a mission because Mel said Carl wants to watch the movie with you because he wants to see your reaction, which felt like a lot of pressure. But we went over. We had dinner, and then we went over to Carl's house to watch it. He had the biggest screen TV. ever seen in your life. It was bigger than that. And it was, the reception was so clear. I could see, and the one character in the movie, it was a black and white film from the 40s, and I could see the guy's wig lace. The picture was so clear. It was
oh my God.
unbelievable, and so big. And of course, Mel is on one side, and Carl is running the remote control, for the movie, and Mel is saying, Carl, it's too loud. It's too loud. What? It's too loud. What? That movie's too loud. What? Oh, now you hit the fast forward. Now, go back, Carl. Go back. Go back 3 reels. Go back to the part when he was in the bed. So anyway, and so they were and this is a movie, it's all about, I've never seen a film that involved so much amnesia. Amnesia. There was so much, Ronald Colman kept hitting his head and forgetting and then remembering who he was, and it was unbelievable. And, and then either Carl or Mel would turn to me and say, I bet you didn't see that coming. And then at the end, Ronald Colman remembers who Greer Garson is, and both Mel and Carl are like, I say I'm not going to cry, but I cry every time. It's the only way to watch an old movie. It's with the 2,000-year-old man and
the
his
best
partner.
I mean, what a treat that is.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mel is. I love him to death, and it was one of the great highlights of my career.
You never worked
with him.
Woody Allen?
No, he's never called. He's never. No. I know people sort of assume I would have been in one Woody Allen film, but no, it's never happened.
All right. So let's talk about this book that you wrote with Deb.
Sure.
It's called Naughty Mabel.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a dog. Now, tell them who you based the character of the dog on.
It's inspired, but we should really. There's been some misconceptions about this book.
Come on,
because the dog is. The character we created is inspired by our own. We have a French bulldog named Mabel.
Right.
But it's really that's all they really have in common. But yes, it was one day I was joking with Devlin because. Whenever I would take Mabel out for a walk, and very often we would, if we were going to East Hampton, we have a house in East Hampton, we were going out there, I don't drive, so I would get a town car. They would send a black town car, and I would take Mabel in it. So every time she saw a black town car in the street, it was like she thought it was for her. So she would see it and drag me towards it, like we were late for a movie premiere. And she would try to get in. She would crawl into, scratching on the door. And so I said, this dog is so pampered. It's just ridiculous. I said we should write a children's book called Mabel of the Hamptons about an overprivileged French bulldog.
Right.
And Devlin, was laughing, and then he said, I actually think that's a really good idea, He said it was Eloise at the Plaza, why not Mabel of the Hamptons? And so he went off, and he's a writer and a theater producer. He went off, he wrote a first draft, and he said, he said, now it's your turn. Now let's work on this together. So for about 3 years we worked on this, and then we met with Simon & Schuster, and they loved it, and it's been I must say, it's been a real pleasure. We're very proud of it, and I think it's fun and charming.
But didn't you say you based the personality of the dog on Gwyneth Paltrow?
How many times do I have to tell you, you don't lead with the punchline?
I didn't think you were ever going to get there.
I was... Oh, you want me to do Mabel material? No, the joke was that, the Mabel is, she has 26, it's true, she has 26 separate allergies. She has a very delicate stomach. She's very stubborn, a little neurotic, a little needy. It's like living with Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, there you go.
That was the joke.
You got there.
That was the joke. But the other joke is that now it's all the fame has gone to her head. You can't look her directly in the eye, or she feels threatened and will lash out. It's like living with Streisand. I have about 8 of those.
So, okay, here's a couple of questions from the audience. Have you ever considered doing a one-man show?
Well, no.
Okay.
No, I mean, you mean like a one-man, like a playing a character, or you mean just a concert or that kind of thing? Well, she
doesn't elaborate. That's the whole question.
All right. Well, in that sense, no. I mean, I've thought of, I've thought about maybe doing some sort of a concert or or something like that.
You could write it. I think your life is interesting.
Yeah.
And you can do also. I think you should do it.
So maybe.
Someone says, to Nathan Lane, please repeat what you said in the Sunday New York Times book review. What book would you want a president to read?
Oh, yeah. Buy the book. There's a little thing in the New York Times book review that I had, because of our book, I was asked to fill out this questionnaire, and I'll tell you something. I've been in show business for 40 years, but I've gotten more compliments about this damn thing than I wrote. I was very touched, because obviously people, first of all, were shocked that I read. They think actors are just bimbos, but that I knew anything about literature. But what did I say? Well, they say, I believe the question was, what book would you recommend to the president? And I said, well, it would depend on who was president, but based on the recent Republican debates, I'd just be happy if I knew they could read. A book without colors to picture, pictures to color. Yeah.
Well, we had the Bush administration had that big coloring book administration. Yeah. What's the one thing that you know? I like that question. What's the one thing that you know for sure?
The one thing that I know?
For sure.
That I know for sure?
Yeah. Like some people would say, I believe in God. That's the one thing I know for sure. Now, we know you're not going to say that.
The one thing I know for sure? Well, that's a hard question. I didn't know we'd get all existential at this point.
All right.
I don't. The one thing I know for sure. Yeah. Well, I know that eventually this is going to end.
There you go. Okay, good. That's good. That's good.
I know this can't go on forever.
What part was most challenging to play night after night after night after night after night?
Hickey in the Iceman Cometh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't the 8 shows?
We did it. We did only 6 shows a week at BAM, but it's a 5-hour play. But that play is, look, it's a monumental play, and it asks everything of you, and then especially in the last act, there is a 25-30-minute monologue essentially that you have where he recounts the story of his life and why he killed his wife, and it's the most. Certainly, it's the most thrilling challenge you could want as an actor, because O'Neill is asking you to. I mean, it's the ultimate test. He's asking you to jump off this cliff with him and to go where he's going as a writer, to the darkest of places. And so when you're doing it night after night after night, there are nights where you'll have like 3. Maybe you'll have 3 shows in a row where it goes really, really well, and you think, "Oh my God!" And then there comes a night when it's just, your psyche, you says, I'm not going. I don't want to go back down that dark alley.
Right.
And you have to you sort of have to get there a little more technically than you would like, and it's a hard.
How do you do that? I remember Shelley Winters was on the Actors Studio, and she was saying to the students, if you don't want to go there, you can't be an actor. You have to want to go to that place.
Yes, yeah, you do. But
why would you want to do that every night?
Well, it's because of what you're sharing. When you have it's about the material that you have. When you're telling a story like that, that is so. When with Iceman, he wanted the audience to go through this emotional marathon, so that when you spend that amount of time with those characters, I'll tell you, first of all, I didn't want to do that show. They wanted to do it on Broadway, and I didn't want to do it because it was never going to be the way it was at BAM. Because there you had people who came in and wanted that challenge.
Yeah.
They wanted to be there.
Really? In Brooklyn?
Yeah, and you could hear a pin drop, for 5 hours, especially the last act where it's tough, it's challenging. And yet by the end of it, you really feel you have lived through something and you understand something about yourself and these characters, and there's nothing better. I mean, there's nothing better than that kind of silence in the theater when especially in this day and age with the phones and the texting and the people are eating and the bringing sodas back and the breaking and the crumpling up their plastic bottles and it's people. It's now like a movie. People are treating it as if it's a movie, and so to have that experience in Brooklyn where they want that challenge, and so that was the toughest, but the most rewarding by far, and the most and thrilling. The notion of trying to do it for a long time, for 6 months, and having to do maybe 7 a week, and for Broadway audiences who would probably be
and their phones are going to go off, and Apple Watches.
You mean there's another act? I just didn't, things have changed. And, I thought, no, this is the perfect venue to do Iceman now. And I'm thrilled that we did. But, yeah, no.
So it was a bigger thrill for you than doing the producers? Or
It was the biggest thrill of anything I've ever done. Because there's nothing that compares to that play. It's O'Neill. He's the daddy of American drama. There's nothing. When I said to Brian Dennehy, I want to do this with you, and Bob, and he said, you've only picked the hardest play and the hardest part ever written. But if you want me, I'll be there. But that's why I want to do this. It's why you want to be an actor. You want to have those experiences. Because when you do, I'm not saying you get there every night, but when you do reach those heights, or you get in that vicinity, and you're sharing that with people and telling that kind of story and those kinds of huge emotions and how can you and trying to fathom why this man does what he does, and it's an extraordinary feeling. It's the reason where you want to be in the theater. It's the only place where you can still have that connection with people, and that goes back to the very beginnings of telling this story. And we're all, when you hear it, you can hear people breathing, you can hear people thinking and feeling, and there is nothing better than that.
How about laughs? Big laughs.
What?
Big laughs. What about that?
Well, sure. I love. Sure, nobody loves big laughs like me. But it doesn't mean I don't. But it's. I tell you, it's important to balance things, and I've just felt like it was time to do that, and I'm glad I was able to. I was given the opportunity.
When you talk, I can sense that you love it. Really love it. And I want to thank you for this. And I'd like to tell everybody that Nathan and Devlin, the newlyweds, are signing the book, which is based on Gwyneth Paltrow, in the lobby of the 92nd Street Y. So thank you all for coming.